Hello, friends. We are going to get started with the forum about the youth mission trip in just a couple minutes. I would love for some of these front seats to get filled in if anybody wants to be up close and personal hearing the stories of our trip from our youth. We're starting in just a couple minutes. If you want to come sit in the front, I'm sure the youth would appreciate that. Okay, if you are wanting to chat with your friends or have side conversations during this time, as we normally ask during forums, please take that conversation outside. We have lots of tables you can sit at out there. So the way this is going to work is Cameron is going to start by telling us a little bit about the Cheyenne River Episcopal Mission, where we went on our trip, and I will start the slideshow. It's 13 minutes long, so probably we'll get through it at least twice, maybe more than that. And then Athena is going to give you all a summary of what we did. And then each of the youth will come and share something they learned and their favorite part. And then I'll tell you a little bit more about where the Episcopal Mission is at today and what they need to feel supported by our church in the long run. Okay, Cameron.
All right. So the Cheyenne River Episcopal Mission is the collection of Episcopal churches in the Cheyenne River Reservation, which is in central South Dakota. There's a collection of about 10 churches that were started around the 1800s. Right now, correct me if I'm wrong, Annalise, it's just the two priests that run all 10 churches, so they kind of go from community to community to help out in the different areas on the reservation. The main goal is to help out the unfortunate poverty-stricken area, as well as to make a lot of amends. There was a lot of focus on how the native people there felt like a lot of the history with colonizers is that, you know, we colonized the area, but then afterwards, trying to make amends, we would not listen to what they were saying about things. And so a big part of this mission is also to learn about the native cultures there and to learn about the people and actively hear and listen to what they what their story is and help them to tell it themselves. So
That's great. And one way that the priests, who are both white, they're from Connecticut, are helping to listen to the people of the Cheyenne River Reservation and advance what they're asking for is by providing children access to horses. So the people on the Cheyenne River Reservation are one of many Lakota tribes. There's actually 4 bands that make up that reservation. And if you've ever been to South Dakota, you may know that horses are extremely important in Lakota culture. Near Mount Rushmore, there's actually a second memorial, the Crazy Horse Memorial, which honors the importance of horses in Lakota culture. But keeping horses is very expensive. And so most Lakota people, including most Lakota children, never have access to horses, never have ridden a horse. And so when this couple showed up from Connecticut, they had a horse with them. Mother Ellen, who's the wife and one of the priests, is a longtime horseback rider, so she brought her horse with her from Connecticut. And once people on the reservation saw that, they thought, what a great way to get kids riding a horse. And she made a connection with somebody from one of the reservations just north of them, who came in and started leading sort of like workshops to help repair the relationship between Lakota people and the land, including between Lakota people and the horses. And there were some people on the reservation who owned horses already, but most of them couldn't afford to keep their horse anywhere, or maybe just had it in the yard. So they've offered free space for tribal members to keep horses and ponies and donkeys if they have them, and given access to kids to ride the horses and ponies and donkeys that are safe to ride, which is only about 4 of the 20 horses that now live on their property. So with that, I will let Athena tell us about what we did with the kids and the horses and everything else.
So when we got there, is this on? Okay, you can hear me? Okay. So what we did when we got to South Dakota is we drove out from the airport and we got to our place. I don't know if there's not a picture of it up right now. That would have been convenient. But we stayed at this big retreat center that was pretty close to the horse and pony ranch. So we drove out to the ranch every morning, and on the first day before the camp started, then we helped them like set up because there was a big storm the night before. So we had to help like get rid of all these branches that fell before the kids showed up the next day. So that was not the easy setup day we were expecting. It was a lot of hard physical activity, but it was very rewarding, I think. And the next day, when the kids showed up, then there were a lot of them, more than I was expecting. But then they what? What's so funny? All right. Well, the kids showed up, and they sort of split into groups and rotated through various stations, and we all helped staff at some of the stations. So there were like games, and there was a playground, and there was the horses and the ponies, and then there was art. And so we all helped run these stations, and then so the kids, they went through all the stations, they had lunch, they had snacks, and then they went home. And that happened pretty much every day. And at the horses station, then they could ride some of the horses.
What did we do in our free time?
And in our free time, then we went to the lake on one of the days, and we played hide and seek, and well, not at the lake, but we went to the lake. We played hide and seek in the retreat center. And then we went to the Badlands on the last day after the camp was over, and it was a lot of fun and very beautiful.
Great.
Anything else you want me to add? Right, so yeah, and then after Badlands, then we got back on a plane and flew home again.
Okay, so we'll go down the line, and each of the youth are going to share something that they learned and what their favorite part of the trip was.
I'm gonna do something not that I like, but something I did throughout the trip. A lot of the kids did not have a form of transportation, so Mother Ellen would take a mini school bus around the neighborhoods and picking up kids to take to the camp. Something Mother Ellen emphasized a lot is that a lot of these kids did not have parental figures in these houses. She had to wake up parental figures, guardians, from drunken sleep to get permission to take their kids out of the poor conditions they lived in. She picked up just about anyone that had approval of a parental figure. Is that an older sibling, parent, uncle, aunt? So that was definitely a culture shock, a shock that not everyone is as fortunate as we are to live in stable living conditions. A more positive tone, I volunteered to help with the horses a lot. I helped lead the ponies a lot with a small group of people that kind of consistently did that. Elizabeth helped with that too. She liked the horses. There were a lot of different animals there that we got to interact with. That was kind of just a change of pace from just cars constantly, just being able to really connect with the animals.
I think kind of what Timothy said about learning a lot about poverty, and there was a big culture shock when we went to the reservation. There was a lot of different, just the way that they were raised was very different, and their family situation was very interesting. And I learned a lot about poverty and a lot about the reservation. And my favorite part was seeing the kids interact with the horses and how happy they were to just kind of see the animals, because I don't know, it just made me really happy to see them happy.
That scared me. So one thing I learned while on the trip was that the first time that I rode the bus, on the last day of camp, I rode the kids home on the bus, and they were very energetic, but I was very shocked when I saw their living conditions, like Timothy said. It was very different than I was expecting, and I learned that most people in that area, or some more than I expected, are less fortunate than I am, and that I should be grateful for what I have, because some people are not as fortunate as I am. And one thing that I liked was the naps. I have 3 favorite napping spots. It was either on the couch in the main area, in the place that we were staying, and then there was also a trampoline, 2, at the little place where the kids went for camp. There was 2 trampolines, and I liked to nap on them when we were done, because
I was on Nathan wake up duty half the time.
yeah, he woke me up.
I would go over to the trampoline and I'd be like, Nathan, wake up. He'd be like, huh?
And then my final favorite spot was on the car. Almost every time I would fall asleep and AJ would take pictures of me.
So, one of the things that I learned. This close? This close? Okay. Okay, I'm going to start with my favorite, one of my favorite parts, which was probably like I was on one of the buses, and when we were at one of their houses, a lot of the kids had like pets, and they would be like AJ, look, I have this dog, and I'd be like, aw, and they'd carry the dog, and it was so cute because they were so excited to be with their pets, and it was just super sweet, and that was probably one of my favorite parts. One of the things that I learned was just like how deep things like generational trauma and such go. Like, for example, they told us a story one day of a girl who was taken from her parents at a young age, and so she didn't really get to learn how like being parented was, and so when she had children, her children didn't get to learn it because she didn't learn how to be a mother. And so you can see it, like, it goes down deep, like, and it's hard to escape it, so it's just very disheartening to see it. And so it's just terrible, I guess. I don't know. I guess that's my point.
All right. So one thing I learned, well, I learned a lot of things, but they already said most of them. So one thing I learned, goats are really mean. So most of the days I was like working in the barn, and in order for the children to go into the stalls with the animals in them, then one of the helpers had to go in with them. So I kept having to go into the goat enclosure with the kids, and the goats, they bit me a lot. The goats, they were mean. I learned that goats are really mean. On a different note, my favorite part was when we went to Badlands, and then there was the main path, right? And then you could also go up like these like side paths where you gotta climb a little bit. And I chose the path less traveled. I like climbing things, and there were so many things to climb at Badlands, and it was beautiful, and I loved it.
Great, thanks, guys. The rest of our time will just be for all of you. If you have some questions for the youth, things that you saw maybe in the pictures that you're wondering about, we can answer your questions, and then I'll close by sharing a little bit more about where the Cheyenne River Episcopal Mission is at today. All right, Karen's going to be our mic handler.
Hello. Okay.
So Amber, were the goats mean to everybody, or were they picking on you?
I mean, the goats. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I don't think the goats were doing it out of malice. I think they were doing it because they just wanted to chew on stuff, and yeah, they wanted to chew on everybody's stuff.
Yeah.
She just chose to spend more time with them than the rest of us did. I never went in there. I was too scared of them.
I don't know, the ghosts are pretty nice to be that way.
There's one over here.
I remember that, and I think there was at least one picture that you all went to church there on the Sunday, and I would love to hear what your experience of church there was like.
One of the main differences between our former church and their former church is music. I can't speak on, well, yeah. I don't really know the specific names or songs we sang, but we sang a lot of tribal songs that we wouldn't sing here. We sang a lot of songs without instrumental backgrounds. So it was really interesting having the different type of music throughout the church service.
Yeah. Oh, just saying it.
Another thing that I noticed that, like, similar to what Timothy said, is that they had two hymnals, which was quite interesting to me. One that was in English and one that was in, Lakota, yeah. And it was just quite interesting to to see that they were still like, using that language in church and such. Now you can take it.
Also because it's like a much less resourced congregation. So they worship, the two priests travel around to the different churches, but they regularly worship at the biggest church, which is St. John's in Eagle Butte, which is the biggest town on the reservation, and it has like 1,000 people maybe. I think like 800. So St. John's in Eagle Butte is where most of their services are. But at all of their services, regardless of where they are, they never print a program because it's just a much less resourced community, and frankly, the priests have more important things to do than printing the programs. And they have no Donna, they have no administrator, it's just them. And they do have a deacon who's an Indigenous woman, but again, she's like very involved in the community doing lots of great volunteer stuff. So they don't print programs, they just use the Book of Common Prayer and then the English hymnal and the Lakota hymnal, and that's it. Kind of refreshing, honestly.
So you guys went and were able to make a big difference in these kids and showing them ways to exist. What other kinds of things moving forward do you think could be done in order to help materially change their lives?
Do you have an idea? I mean, I think a lot of the answers are similar to just the answer to general poverty, which is like, there's very few high-paying jobs on the reservation. There are not enough jobs in general. Part of the sad thing that happened with the reservation system is that indigenous tribes used to live in like the most fertile parts of land, or the easiest to live off of the land places. And when they moved people to reservations, they often moved them. Well, lots of tribes got moved thousands of miles away from their homeland. Luckily for the Lakota, they're still within South Dakota, but they used to live closer down to the river, the Cheyenne River, and they had extremely fertile farm soil down there. And then the state of South Dakota, or maybe the federal government, built a couple of dams on the Cheyenne River and flooded the river. So now it's absolutely enormous, and it flooded all of the most fertile land where they used to farm. So all of those jobs are completely gone. In fact, the entire original town of Eagle Butte is like underwater. Like a scuba diver could go down, and they'd see a whole town underwater in the Cheyenne River. And the town has now moved, and when they moved, not only was the soil not as good, but the way that the land got divided up, indigenous people did have a right to a pretty significant swath of land, but if they didn't have the tools or the money or the labor to work the land, they sold it. So a lot of the farms and ranches around there, which are like alfalfa, clover, stuff like that, are owned by white people, by non-tribal members. So somehow getting some of that land back and bringing in jobs to that area, I think, would help. I don't know if anybody has any other ideas. And a huge reason they have this camp is because one of the things that Kurt and Ellen, the priests, heard over and over when they first moved there is there's not enough activities for the kids. So there's nothing for the kids to do in the summer. Their parents work, or a lot of the parents are addicts and aren't really taking great care of the kids. So there's nothing for them to do. So if there's a camp, especially a free camp, every single kid on the reservation wants to be there. And so they could have, if they could have another school bus, they could get more people there. If they could have way more volunteers, they could get more kids there. And this upcoming summer, I'll talk about this a little bit at the end, they're expanding. It was originally 1 week of camp, then 2 weeks of camp, then this summer 3 weeks of camp, and next summer it'll be 4 weeks, which is great.
Yeah. Oh.
Quick add-on. Another thing there, I know we talked a lot about the stark differences in circumstance between the everybody there and what we've known here. But one of the things that at the same time is heartwarming and heartbreaking is that when you see the kids at camp, they're just kids being kids, and so it's one of those things where it's at horse camp, they don't have, other than at horse camp, they don't have a lot of opportunity to really just, run around and be a kid. And so part of that is just giving that opportunity to not have to be as burdened with so much of the economic thing, with childcare. Like that's what you've got to go to work. Where are you supposed to? There's no childcare services or anything. So finding ways to ease that burden and help them, get on their feet.
So I had a question. What food did you guys eat? Did you cook for yourselves, or how did that work? And then how did food work with the kids?
Okay, so for food, we mostly cooked for ourselves. When we first arrived, we actually we went to a Walmart that they had, and we bought all the supplies that we would need for the week that we would be there, like all the food, all the stuff. Oh yes, before, as you were saying, or you probably didn't hear, before we even went and before we even left our flight, we divided into two teams, which we both divided up the time that we would need to cook. So half of us would cook half the days, and the other half. And so then once we got there, we would cook for ourselves, and I think we had a bit of a variety of food. I think we had things from like pasta to stir fry, chicken parmesan, other such items. It was pretty good. Oh yes, during the camp day, we also would eat what they had there, which was actually pretty good food. They had people that would be in the kitchen of the people that owned the place, and they would cook for the kids and for some of the volunteers, which were us. They had lots of food. I can't remember a lot of them. Do you have any examples? They had pasta, they had salad, lasagna. They had a lot of stuff. It was pretty good. Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, they had, I think one of the days they had pasta, one of the days they had hot dogs, one of the days they might have had pizza too. Yeah, they had a lot of really good food at the camp. And yeah, we ate lunch with the kids. There were also loads of snacks for the kids to eat throughout the day, and they were pretty clear about this. The kids, they can go get a snack whenever they want. If they want a snack, they go get a snack. If they're taking loads of snacks, then stuffing them in their pockets, that's okay. We want these kids to have enough to eat. And if they take some, and if there's some left over at the end of the day, then we send it home with some of them so that they can bring it to their families so they got enough to eat.
Yeah, the Mother Kurt and Father Allen, the priests know now because they've lived there for a while, which of the families suffer most from food insecurity. So a lot of the kids, this what they ate during the camp day would be the only thing they would eat that day, and they knew which families to send home the leftovers from lunch with, who needed it the most.
Did you get any idea of what the regular school, which wasn't in session, but what that was like, or where it was, located?
A little bit that I can remember is that a lot of the kids weren't as educated as a lot of people around here. There were some people that would be in like 6th grade but had the like reading level and such of like a 2nd grader, which gives a bit of insight into the fact that the schools were not super like they didn't have all the resources that we would have around here. Yeah.
They also had a boarding school on the reservation that a lot of kids would go to during the year. Some of them would stay at the boarding school in dorms during the week and then go home on the weekends, like even in high school, just because it was easier to live there than at home with their families. So that was kind of interesting to learn about.
Yeah, that's a good question. So obviously some of you may know about the history of Indian boarding schools, which a lot of them were opened by the church 100 or 200 years ago. We were unclear on if this physical property, which we drove by all the time, had at one point been a church boarding school. Certainly some Lakota people were sent to Indian boarding schools, but right now it's a public school. So it's the public school for Eagle Butte, which is, again, the biggest city on the reservation. And a couple of the other towns have public schools as well, but the reservation is enormous. It's the size of the state of Connecticut, and there are a lot of people who live in towns that are far too small to have a school and are like too far away to get to any school. A lot of the roads aren't paved and they don't get plowed in the winter. So the choice to have some kids come to the Eagle Butte school and stay there or stay there during the school year as boarders is voluntary by the tribe. Nobody's being forced to do that. And in fact, it's actually a lot safer situation for a lot of the kids to come live there, like Elizabeth said, than it is for them to be at home. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the Bureau of Indian Affairs runs everything from the hospital to the schools to the housing authority, but it only applies to the tribal members. And then so there's like a lot of I think this school is run by the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the town of Eagle Butte because there's a lot of non-tribal members who live in Eagle Butte as well. Like Curtin Allen's, they have 5 kids and their youngest child is still in school. And she goes to like a public school on the reservation even though she's not a tribal member. Any other questions? Do you got any last words that you all want to share about the trip?
Do you want to go again?
Yeah, do you want to go again? Yeah. Nice. So hopefully we will get to go again. I'll say a little bit about where the Cheyenne River Mission is at right now. So like I said, they're trying to put on 4 weeks of camp this upcoming summer. And something that'll be really, really different, well, 2 things that'll be really, really different is they have been wanting for years to build a indoor-outdoor arena, a covered arena for riding. Because of climate change, the weather in the summer in South Dakota is becoming much more unpredictable than it used to be and a lot wetter than it used to be. So the whole time we were there, the outdoor riding space was completely unusable because it was so muddy. So they want to build this arena so that it's usable space. So they were riding the horse like on the driveway or on the front lawn, like kind of awkward small spaces. So they actually have built this arena. They're finishing up the final touches on it now, and it'll be ready for us next summer. So that's really exciting. The other thing is that the week of camp that we were at, there was a camper. He came every week, but this incident happened while we were there, who's an older camper with special needs who's been coming to camp for years, and he's like an adult-sized person, and he fell off one of the horses because it's a regular-sized horse, but not a stability horse, which is what people often, like horse therapists, equine therapists often use for people with special needs. So Mother Ellen, being the lovely woman that she is, went out looking for a draft horse that she could train as a stability horse for Jet and for campers like him who need a larger, wider stability platform to ride on. And she bought a horse, but had to take out I think the mission had to take out some debt to pay for both the horse and the arena. So they are still fundraising to cover the cost of those 2 things, as well as the cost of putting on 4 weeks of camp instead of 3. So if there's any way that we at St. Jude's can support them throughout the year, that would be fantastic. Please get in touch with me if you want to help financially support them. We're now on their mailing list that sends asks all the time for specific needs, but those 2 are the specific needs right now. And then next summer, hopefully we'll go back. You'll hear more from us on that soon, depending on if we are all available for the weeks of camp that are still available. Great. Yeah, thanks everyone. I'll keep this going for a little longer if you all want to see the pictures again.
Those are the goats.
I'm petting goats. That's just a wheel.
That was from when it rained so much the school bus got stuck and we had to push it up the driveway.
I was very tired after a long day of hard work.
You're very eepy.
That's the view from the retreat center where we were.
Butterfly.
Cameron, say something about all the nature pics.
So I would wake up. Because we had so much work to do, as Nathan was telling you about, there wasn't ample opportunity for me to go out and look for birds. So I would wake up every morning and watch the sunrise from the ranch we were on while I would be looking for some birds. And so I got some nice photos of the sun coming up, of some of the birds around there. I can tell you when they come up, but I don't think I put very many of the pictures on the slideshow, maybe one or two. But one of the other things that was really great and fun was I had my guitar and my camera for birds, but also for taking pictures of us. And the kids at camp were just in love with both of those things. And so if a lot of the time I would wind up just letting the kids play my guitar or, take a bunch of pictures with my camera. So if you see some blurry pictures on there, those are ones that some of the kids from the camp took, but I thought that they still conveyed some of the energy that was there at camp. It was just a lot of fun and a lot of, and there's the guitar, yeah. So that was basically my job the whole time I was there, was just let the kids play guitar.
Nathan sleeps with his mouth open, and it's really funny. That's all I had to say. Oh, Marshmallow. What? He was like Mother Ellen's. He's like a pony, right? He was for Oh, no, that was Marshmallow. Yeah, Marshmallow is like a medium-sized pony, and then there's Francis. That's Francis, who was a mini pony for like the toddlers or the little kids, and then that was Majestique, which was like a normal-sized horse. Yes.
The animals that you just saw, so Mother Kerr and Father Allen are fantastic people. Obviously, they took this job on the Cheyenne River Reservation, which is a hard job. They also have 5 kids, all of whom they've adopted. They have 8 dogs, some of whom they've rescued off of the streets of the reservation, and 2 cats. So our pet lovers among us were very happy.
I don't know if you saw the picture in the slideshow, but one thing I would like to mention is every day there was like this hot cocoa machine, and there was these little things of hot cocoa that we would put in, and sometimes Annalise also got a jar of like the hot cocoa powder from Walmart, obviously, and every day when we were making hot cocoa for breakfast, Elizabeth would take a spoon and eat like 3 spoonfuls of hot cocoa powder every day, and it was so funny. Elizabeth, do you have anything to say about your hot cocoa powder?
It tastes good. It's better than actual hot cocoa.
Yes. Feel free to stay, keep looking at the pictures, ask questions about them. We do have a lot of leftover sandwiches from the wedding that was here yesterday, so feel free to and there's some bags back there, so feel free to grab 2, 3, 12 sandwiches and take them home. So make sure as you leave, whenever you leave, grab some sandwiches. But don't feel like you need to leave. Keep looking at pictures. Who's that, Annalise?
That's one of the Lakota elders. So they usually have like 2 or 3 speakers come. There was a couple of really sad things that happened the week we were there, so he was only able to come speak to us on the very last day. But he's an elder who's, I think his title is drum master. Do you remember? Yeah. He's like drum master, which is like the keeper of the songs. So he would play drums and then also sing a lot of the indigenous chants. And he is that's like his unpaid tribal work. His paid job is as executive director of a addiction nonprofit that serves the reservation. And he told us his story. He had been an addict and had just a really hard life. Most of his siblings and his parents were addicts as well. And he had a couple of children whom he didn't have custody of, and one daughter who, once he got sober, he ended up having custody of, and then she passed away by suicide. And so the story he told us was about her and about how much addiction and suicide are really terrible epidemics on the reservation. The rates of both are much, much higher than the general public. So that was an intense day of learning for all of us, but we loved his songs. And everybody was very well behaved and respectful. And these are Badlands pics. If you've never been to the Badlands, highly recommend.
What's in my hair? Oh, like the. Butterfly. Oh, another little fun fact. Annalise kept getting me to smile for like any one of the pictures, and I never did. I always made just a funny face. I never smiled for one of the pictures. I just made a funny face every time.
Some photos of you sleeping.
You're just gonna find photos of me sleeping.
South Dakota.
No.
See all. Ah, beautiful. Yeah, I can't present it though.
Why not?
It's you. I'll just walk around.
Yes.
I'll just walk around and show you guys. Would you like to see a photo of